If you're dealing with low mineral levels and your efforts to raise them have not been successful, in this video I'm going to help you understand what may be going wrong and steps you can take to turn your situation around. Let's jump in.
TC Hill is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
Now, when we're talking about low minerals in the body, we're not talking about any specific mineral. We're just talking about minerals in general. We should be getting minerals from the foods that we eat, and minerals are very important for a lot of functions in the body. The body uses these minerals to send signals through, and it uses these minerals for a lot of different functions. So when they're going low, it can create a wide variety of issues. So we like to tell people how to look at their blood pressure just to get an idea of how their mineral levels are doing. This is not a diagnostic thing, but you can look at your blood pressure by just picking up a blood pressure cuff at any pharmacy for $30 or $40, and you can do this at home. And just look at your blood pressure at least 2 hours after a meal, but not first thing in the morning while you're still fasted. It should be after a meal. And if that systolic number is below 112, then that's a strong indication that minerals may be going low in this system. The minerals are part of what can thicken up that blood and raise our blood pressure. So when the blood pressure is very low, that can be an indication that there may not be enough minerals in the system. So this video is for someone who looks at that blood pressure and they see that it's below 112, and maybe they're dealing with some of these symptoms that we see when blood pressure goes very low. Things like really extreme cravings, or dizzy spells, or depression, or crazy menstrual cramps, or bipolar issues, or even insomnia. There's a wide variety of things that can come from blood pressure or minerals being too low. And all of those symptoms can be caused by other issues too. Don't think that just because you're dealing with one of those symptoms you must have low mineral levels. But these are the symptoms that often show up when somebody's dealing with a lack of minerals. So what we want to do is look at some considerations first off as to why this may be going on. Because you may be taking efforts to try to raise these minerals, but if they're not successful, some other things could be working against you. Also know that it seems that with about half of the clients that we see that are dealing with low blood pressure and low mineral levels, with about half of them, they'll take steps and their blood pressure will come right up into a good range. But for at least half of those clients, the blood pressure doesn't come up for a very long time. It can really take some effort to get that blood pressure up. So don't get too frustrated. Just try to be patient with this scenario. Even for me, when I was on all these acid reflux medications that were turning off my digestion and turning off my ability to access the minerals in the food that I was eating, my blood pressure was really low. And it took me over a year just to get that systolic number into the triple digits. I was like, triple digits, woohoo, look at me, I'm a human. So it took me a while. I didn't know all the things that I know now, but just try not to get too frustrated with yourself if it takes time. Know that it's very common for us to see this. What we want to see when someone's taking steps to lift their mineral levels is, are they feeling and functioning better? We see a lot of clients that will start to feel and function better before their blood pressure will come up into a reasonable range. So don't get too frustrated if it takes a little longer for your blood pressure to come up into this range where the systolic is above 112. But the first thing we want to consider is the person having any digestive symptoms at all? Any burping or bloating or constipation or diarrhea or acid reflux or nausea or indigestion or even skin or acne issues. All of these are signs that digestion is not working correctly, and that means that you're not truly breaking down your food and not accessing all the nutrients and minerals in that food. So you may be eating really healthy foods, but if you can't break it down into these elemental nutrients that the body needs, then you're not really getting all the nutrients in that food. And it would make sense that mineral levels would go low since you're not really getting all the minerals out of the food that you're eating. So that becomes the priority. And when we look at digestion, we want to know, is a person making enough stomach acid? It's very common today for someone not to be making enough stomach acid for a wide variety of reasons. And if they can't acidify that food correctly and really break it down. And the other thing is, we need to know, is bile flowing correctly? Bile is this soapy substance that's made by the liver and stored in the gallbladder. And when this acidic product leaves the stomach, This bile is supposed to come down and help neutralize those acids, and it's those opposite pHs colliding of this alkaline bile and this acidic product from the stomach. When they collide, it creates like this sizzle that really helps us bust the food apart and get all the minerals and all the nutrients out of that food. So it's very common for one or both of these things not to be working correctly for somebody. So if you're not sure, we'll put a link in the description below for our videos on 10 signs of low stomach acid and 10 signs of poor bile flow. So you can check those out and see if those might be an issue for you. If you need help correcting digestive issues, then my book, Kick Your Fat in the Nuts, chapters 3 and 4, kind of walk you through figuring out which aspects of digestion are not working correctly and what steps you can take to improve those. And the book is available on Amazon, but I'll put a link in the description below so you can get the whole thing totally for free, and then you can just jump to chapters 3 and 4 and work on these digestive factors. So I won't spend too much time on that, but that's important. If you're not fixing this, then you're not going to be able to really lift those mineral levels. So I talk to a lot of people that are like, oh, I can't get my mineral levels up. I'm still having these symptoms. My blood pressure is still low, and I've taken steps to improve digestion. Well, they've taken steps to improve digestion, but that doesn't mean that they've taken enough steps to improve their digestion. So if you're still dealing with any digestive symptoms at all, even though you're taking steps to improve digestion, it just means you need to be more aggressive and take more steps or allow more time to really repair that digestive function. It takes a little bit of time for some people. It's not going to happen overnight for most folks. Another thing to consider is that it's the minerals in the system that thicken up the blood, but there can be other things that can lower blood pressure that can also affect how a person feels and functions. And our autonomic nervous system kind of runs a lot of the show behind the curtains. And there's a sympathetic fight or flight side and a parasympathetic rest and digest side. And this parasympathetic side is the side the body wants to move into when it's time to rest or digest. So that's an appropriate place to be for part of the day. But for a wide variety of reasons, some people will get really stuck in either the parasympathetic state or the sympathetic fight or flight state. And being really stuck in one of these states can create a wide variety of symptoms. Now, if a person is stuck in this parasympathetic state, it has the ability to sort of dilate the vascular system or open it up a little bit. And opening it up can kind of lower the pressure needed to push everything through. So it actually lowers a person's blood pressure by being stuck in this parasympathetic state. So we'll put a link in the description below for our video on how to correct a parasympathetic imbalance and understand if you might be dealing with that. And that video will kind of walk you through figuring out if that's a problem for you. What's interesting in this scenario is that it's really common for the body to move into this parasympathetic state as far as it can when digestion isn't working correctly. If there's digestive malfunctions like a lack of stomach acid or bile is not flowing correctly, the body will often try to push itself into that parasympathetic state as hard as it can just to try to boost digestion any way it can. So if a person's really stuck in that state because digestion isn't working correctly, they have a lot more things working against them. Not only are they not accessing all the nutrients in their food, but being stuck in this parasympathetic state is also kind of opening up their vascular system and lowering their blood pressure even more. So this is a factor for some people and worth checking out. The next thing to think about is a person having blood sugar crashes? If a person's having hypoglycemic type responses when they eat carbs or sugars or starches, and they're creating this sugar spike with all these carbs that they're eating, and that results in this huge sugar crash, that sugar crash can really lower blood pressure and make a person feel really lousy. Sugar is part of what can thicken up the blood and raise our blood pressure. So if a person's having sugar crashes, that can really affect where that blood sugar is. And you want to take steps to improve any hypoglycemic type responses that you're having. And you can do this by changing your body chemistry, but also changing the way that you eat. And we'll talk about looking into that in just a minute. But the next thing that we want to think about is low insulin levels. When insulin goes very low for extended periods of time, it can cause some people to pee out more minerals. So something that's very popular right now is to use things like a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet or a very low carb diet where a person's really reducing a lot of their carbohydrates. And keep in mind that these are all diets that we are fans of. We have a lot of our clients use these diets. They can be very beneficial for a wide variety of situations. So we don't have anything against these particular types of diets. But if somebody's mineral levels are already very low and they go on a keto or carnivore or a very low carb diet and allow insulin to really come down very low for most of the day, they could pee out more of those minerals and make their situation much worse. So it's not that this diet is bad for them, it's just that they don't really qualify to use this diet yet. They need to take steps to lift those mineral levels so when they eat in a way that really brings insulin down most of the time, they're not going to pee out the small amount of minerals that they have. And what's interesting about these two things is that a lot of times if someone is having hypoglycemic type responses to carbohydrates, it's because their insulin is almost like a bully, like it's almost too effective. It's working too aggressively. So they only need to make a very small amount of insulin to sweep all the glucose out of the bloodstream. So when they're only making a small amount, insulin is low most of the time. And then they may be peeing out more of these minerals too. So it's very common for us to see these things hand in hand where someone may be peeing out too many minerals and there's a variety of reasons that insulin is going very low. But beyond correcting any of these problems, especially the digestive issues, if there's digestive issues, those must be corrected or this is going to be very frustrating to try and fix. But beyond taking those steps, other steps that can really help are using bone broth, drinking bone broth every day. When you're drinking bone broth, you basically cook these bones and other vegetables and other things in this water for like days. And it really accesses all the nutrients from within those bones and puts them in the liquid, making them very easy for you to assimilate. You don't need to break this down when you're consuming bone broth. You don't need to break everything down to access the nutrients. They're right there in liquid form. So this is a very easy way to really increase the amount of nutrients and minerals that the body's getting. We don't like to see people using like a store-bought bone broth. There are some frozen grass-fed varieties that are okay. Those are acceptable. But if you're getting something in a carton, they just don't seem to be as effective. They don't seem to have the nutrient levels that really making your own bone broth would. So that can be very helpful. For some people, they may need to increase their carbs a little bit. I don't want you to think that, oh, I'll just go eat pie and then my blood pressure is going to come up. Because if you're having hypoglycemic reactions, that's going to make the situation much worse. But if a person's on a keto or a carnivore or a very low carb diet, they may need to temporarily raise their carbohydrates a little bit, maybe use like more medium carb foods like butternut squash or yams or Brussels sprouts. Things that can raise the carbohydrate levels, maybe pull you out of ketosis enough to give you some fuel to use until you have your minerals high enough that would make you qualify to use those diets successfully. But the other thing to think about is that when minerals go very low, you can buffer that by raising your blood sugar. As long as there's enough sugar in the blood, the body can function. And if blood sugar goes really low, as long as there's enough minerals, that can buffer the low sugar. So as long as a person is doing okay with one, they'll feel and function okay. So if your mineral levels are really low, eating some carbohydrates in a way that may lift that blood sugar a little bit could help a person feel and function a little bit better. Another thing is unrefined salt. This can be very important. And you probably know if you've watched my channel, I don't talk about a lot of products, but this is one that I use a lot. And it's Celtic sea salt, but it's a very specific version of it. It's called Flower of the Ocean. And this is what it looks like. And I'm not affiliated with this company. I'll put an Amazon affiliate link in the description below that you can use, but I'm not connected to this company, so I don't care if you use it. But when I have really low blood pressure clients, I'm like, find this, use it, do whatever you have to do to find it, don't be without it, because it just really seems to help. Now, this is not a supplement that I'm recommending. This is just a type of food, and I'm not saying it's going to raise your blood pressure, but with my low blood pressure clients, they just seem to feel better when they use it. And I tell them, like, don't be shy. Don't be shy. You don't have to be afraid of salt because the doctor told your Uncle Bill it was going to kill him because he has high blood pressure. If you have low blood pressure, you probably need more salt. I even tell my clients, like, look, if you're eating with your friend, I want your goal to be like for your friend to say, what the heck is wrong with you? Why are you using so much salt? You know, like, don't make your food gross, but don't be shy about it. When minerals are low, a good unrefined salt is a great way to lift minerals in the system. Not normal table salt, but an unrefined salt. Any version is okay. I just find that that one works best for the clients that really have low blood pressure. Another thing to think about is vitamin D. Vitamin D has the ability to pull calcium out of the intestinal tract and kind of hold it in the bloodstream. So it can thicken up that blood and raise blood pressure a little bit. Now you just have to be careful not to use these huge doses that a lot of people suggest. When you use way too much vitamin D, it can pull calcium from everywhere, even from the bones, and hold that in the bloodstream. And this can really raise your urine pH. And what's interesting about raising urine pH is that it seems to make some people have more of these sugar crashes. It seems to make their insulin more effective, which may also lower their insulin levels and cause them to pee out more of those minerals. So I like to see people use small amounts of vitamin D at a time. I'm not going to give you a dose, but if you look at your urine pH at least 2 hours after a meal and it's like 6.2 or 6.3 or higher, that can be a sign that maybe you don't need a whole lot more vitamin D. Maybe you're already getting too much, or there's already too much calcium floating around and you don't want to make that situation worse. So vitamin D can be helpful, but too much can be problematic. A person can also use mineral drops in their water. There's a variety of brands out there. I'm not going to give you a brand, but just keep in mind that using these mineral drops in your water, I've never once seen that raise somebody's blood pressure into a good range. I've never seen it work all by itself. But if you're doing it as part of what you're doing, it can be a helpful boost. The same thing with grass-fed liver pills. These are pretty easy to find these days, and you really want a good source of liver pills. You don't want to just get junk liver from a junk animal, because then you're getting all the toxins that they put in that animal. But if you get grass-fed or organic liver pills, they can be helpful because the liver has a lot of nutrients in it that are hard to access from other areas. And in that pill form might be a little bit easier to break down if you're still having digestive malfunctions. There's also some amino acids that can be helpful, but I want you to understand this is not going to be a quick, simple fix. You're really going to have to understand what you're doing to figure out which amino acids may be most beneficial to you. So there's a variety of amino acids that have the ability to lift blood pressure a little bit. L-glutamine, L-phenylalanine, and L-tyrosine all seem to have the ability to do this, and there's a lot of studies that show that they can be beneficial with the symptoms that we see with people that are dealing with low blood pressure. So they can be great, but the problem is they also have the ability to push body chemistry in other directions. So you really want to know where your body chemistry is before you use something like glutamine, because if someone's stuck in what we call an anabolic imbalance, where their body is kind of stuck at the cellular level in this anabolic state that it's only supposed to be in at night, if it's stuck there all the time, and they were to use glutamine, well, that could really magnify that imbalance, which could really magnify a wide variety of symptoms or health issues. So we like to see people look at their body chemistry with simple self-tests that you can do at home with tools you pick up at a pharmacy or a health food store, to get an idea where your chemistry is, to understand which amino acids are going to be most beneficial to you. And we teach how to run those simple self-tests in that book that I showed you how to get for free in the description below. So you can go through those self-tests, figure out where your chemistry is, and then these amino acids can be really beneficial. There's a chapter in my book for supplements specific for you, and that'll help you figure out which ones will be most appropriate for your chemistry while you're trying to take steps to lift these mineral levels and maybe raise your blood pressure a little bit. And if you really get stuck, there's some advanced supplements that are only available if you're working with a coach. So I'm not taking on clients anymore. I've become too busy, but I'll put a link in the description below where you can learn about working with one of the coaches that I've trained. And working with coaches could give you access to some supplements that we use to lift those mineral levels and to lift blood pressure that work really well, but they're just not available to consumers. They're only available to someone working with a coach, so the coach is helping them understand how to use them the right way. But there are options. Now, as far as these other things, for a lot of people, they'll need to do all these things. They really need to do all these steps to really see improvement, because their body just seems to be peeing out minerals as fast as they're dumping it in, and they don't seem to get any traction. So sometimes they need to do all of these things, but if you're feeling better when you're taking these steps, you know you're going in the right direction, even if your blood pressure is not showing that yet. Don't feel upset if it's not getting there. Now, finally, when we're talking about these blood sugar crashes, this can be a little bit more of a complicated topic, but it can be very important in correcting these things for a variety of these issues that we talked about. You can see that blood sugar crashing or insulin going way too low has the ability to really restrict your results when you're trying to lift these mineral levels. So jump over right now and check out our video on how can I keep my blood sugar from crashing, and that'll give you more insights into how to correct that problem. I can't wait to hear about your results.